Hi, Misha here, and well, it's been far too long since I've done a Swiss SIG 55x video, so why not do one again? And in this one, I wanted to do two things. First, show off some new colors, new configurations, and a whole new variant into the USA for the very first time. And with those hopefully on the screen, I wanted to again do an FAQ, frequently asked questions, because I do end up getting asked and end up answering the same questions over and over and over. And that's okay, because new people come in, of course, but sometimes it's just easier to point to a video. So this isn't going to so much be about shooting or too deep into the mechanics or history, but just a little bit of this and that. I have my standard PE90 here. You saw Fox and I shooting back around Mother's Day. We'll talk about the difference between the PE90 and the 550, because that's a very common question. And we'll look at the new 550-DMR, or rather DMP. And we'll look at the 550 Schwartz, the black version. And an interesting 550 Blum. Well, sort of Blum, but not Blum, but Blum in color. So a few things to talk about. These will all generally be the same configuration, but yeah, let's dive on in. Before we get going, if you could, please do like, share, and subscribe. You know the deal now, Patreon, and we'll be doing a new Q&A soon. And thank goodness it has finally cooled off here, so we'll hopefully get some new shooting footage of various guns, but we'll recycle some from previous 550 PE90 videos just to kind of have something in between the sections here. How about that? So let's dive in. So this is a base model PE90 type gun, which is a semi-automatic version of the STGW90 Sturmgewehr 90, which has been the standard issue rifle with the Swiss Army for 40 years. These have a nearly 21-inch barrel. There are a few variations we will talk about, with an integrated flash hider, standard bayonet lug, standard adaptor sights, chambered for 5.6 if it's a -1 or 5.56 if it's a -2. The difference is a 1 in 10 twist versus a 1 in 7, but generally speaking they are interchangeable. Side folding stock is standard. Folding trigger guard. The original version had this gray ceramics style finish with the stamped upper and lower receiver and welding. Castings were also used where possible, like the gas block. A scope mount could be put on top, and these fed from standard Swiss mags. And initially, they were all 20 rounders that could be coupled together jungle style. And flipping it over, a fun piece of trivia. The SGW90, along with the PE90, really don't have a lot of markings, just the serial number on the side, Swiss cross crest on top of the receiver, and there is what I call a SIG roundel on the back, but technically this is on the lower frame. The upper, just so you know, is the firearm part of this gun. It's not like an AR where it's the lower. That's sometimes mixed up, sometimes not, but again, kind of FAQ. The sights are on here. Like I said, you can mount a deal, but they're welded on, so they're not removable, at least in the rear. The front can actually be slid off and replaced if you need to. Standard is a 2-position gas regulator. You have standard and an adverse, also used when it's dirty. And of course there's a grenade ring here. This is considered a full-length gas system with a folding light bipod. And this trigger is nominally adjustable. You have a nut here and one under the grip. You turn to adjust the travel a bit. Not bad for a military gun. And for the adapter version, the charging handle is rubber coated and upswept with a rubber dust cover behind it. So, yeah, this dates back to 1978 when Switzerland decided it was about time to adopt a small caliber high velocity round. This is when essentially 5.56 was catching on everywhere. But since they wanted to maintain their position of neutrality with the USSR and USA, they were going to do their own thing. This would ultimately lead to them trying out a few different rounds, but in 1983 they selected 5.6, which would later be officially adopted as 5.6 Gewehr Patron 1990 GP90. Basically, it is just 5.56, but it's slightly different loading, 63 grain. It gave them that. As for the rifle, SIG had been working on a 223 rifle in partnership with Beretta in the 1960s, and the resulting prototypes were known as the SG550-1. But in 1968, this partnership fell apart. Both companies would continue on. Now, the 530 had a long stroke gas piston, but it used a roller delay bolt system, kind of like the STGW57. From that, Beretta would develop the AR-70 and eventually the AR-7090. That's why there's that common link there. SIG would develop the SG540, which went to the sights, at least a type of these sights. They were a little taller. It went to more stampings and several other things. That also introduced the bipod. And the 540 would see some limited success. Herein in France would produce them in small numbers, and they would be, several thousand would be bought by the French until the famous bullpup was ready. And of course, they would also make their way down to Chile and result in the whole thing down there. But for the Swiss military, they would further refine the design into the SG540-1, or rather the 541 and the 543, because when it was announced for new guns, they wanted a infantry rifle, full size, and a headquarter carbine, compact. The main competition would come from Waffenfabrik Bern and their C42 prototype, and the two designs would go head to head. The cartridge would be officially adopted first, and then the SIG design would be selected for further development a short time later. But there were budget constraints and different things, so this gave SIG a chance in 1984 to further refine the design, with the 541 becoming the 550 and the 543 becoming the 551. The difference was namely the barrel. The 550 had a 20.7-inch barrel with a full-length gas system, bipod. The 551 had a 14.3-inch barrel and a carbine gas system and no bipod. Otherwise, pretty much the same guns, and both had integral flash hiders, non-removable. Also, they did not chrome the bores, although they were cold hammer forged barrels. Folding stock was standard. Adapter sights were standard. 20-round mags were standard. In 1986, the Swiss Army would receive its first 5.50 rifles, adopting them as the Sturmgewehr 1990, because it would take until 1990 for full official adoption and order. And again, because of post-Cold War budget cuts a short time later, they would actually never adopt. Well, they would select that the 551 would pass trials, but it would not be ordered by the Swiss Army in any numbers of note outside of testing. So the headquarters carbine was kind of dropped. They thought, this is good, one size fits all. So the 551 would end up being more successful with police. And at this time, the 553 and 552 didn't exist yet. The first 552s would be in 1998, which was around the same time the Army took delivery of its final 5.50s, STGW90s, aside from attrition replacements. So it would take them roughly a decade to re-equip the Swiss frontline army with the rifle. Of course, the Swiss Army's configuration a little different, and this is the same gun today. Of course, sometimes handguards need to be replaced, butt stocks, things wear out. That's fine. But it seems like when they come in for repair, the furniture is mostly what gets replaced. The receivers and everything themselves were built to last. And yeah, this is pretty well the standard. Now, of course, Special Forces can often have the 553 SB or LB. The 552 has been phased out quite some time ago, and the 751 and 308, 762 NATO, has also been used in small numbers, but I digress. So my PE90 is a civilian variant, semi-automatic only, of the STGW90. So this is the most traditional version. But what just came in is the most modern version that SIG has really ever produced.
Safety check. Going hot. Just playing with the safety. Don't mind me. I love this gun.
Fresh in, right here in the box, we have the 550 DMR, or rather our pistol version, which, like I said, I kind of like to call the DMP. And at first, this might just kind of look like a black version, but it actually is something made for the US market and US shooters, because people were wanting to run a sound suppressor on their 550. And really, that wasn't realistic. Really. Because of that fixed flash hider. Yeah, there are a few workarounds. None are ideal. All are more expensive. This kind of takes all that out. Some other issues. I really like the Swiss mags, but they're not always easy to find and sometimes very expensive. And the same goes for Swiss buttstocks. And adapters are cool, but they are aging out, and today most people want to use red dots, magnified optics, or a red dot with a magnifier. So this pistol was designed to kind of address those and make a more practical shooting version for the 21st century. By the way, current accessories, you get the standard belt cleaning kit pouch, and they've started shipping them with these, not really what I'd call manuals. They're more of a fold out flyer. I mention that because 2021 was the last year I recall SIG shipping the full cool German/English language bound cover shiny page manuals. They just don't do that anymore. In fact, since then, they've not had any paperwork at all in the box. Now we get this for whatever that's worth. It's something, I suppose. But again, this is the modern era. The computer exists, and they do have a PDF version of the full manual. So that's their solution. I guess printing costs got too expensive. Let's begin with the barrel, because that's probably the biggest difference. Like I said, this is a 20.7-inch barrel. We'll get into the 20.8s in a little while with the fixed flash hider. This, you'll notice, is slightly longer here. So while the barrel length is essentially the same, you actually get a little more rifling, and you get a removable Swiss-made but A2 style flash hider. And this is on 1/2x28 threads. Great for, well, putting any device you want on, including a sound suppressor. I mention this because more than a few people asked about cutting this off, either a 550 or a 553 barrel. I mean, you can do what you want, it's your gun, but you'll be destroying a Swiss-made barrel, and it'll be worth very little on the secondary market. This kind of obviates that. It's already threaded from the factory. Really, for the first time, I believe we've ever had imported. We still have the two-way gas regulator, and of course it can be replaced. Fun fact, Switzerland is very specific about their gas regulators. Not only does every barrel length get its own port size set, but even the 1 in 10 versus 1 in 7 twist get their own port side set. Now, I don't know if this is standard in suppressor or just standard in inverse, but it is 2 gas settings, so you can adjust it or even get one and drill it yourself. Instead of adapters, we have the traditional folding backup sight here and here to go along with the Picatinny rail. And you can find quad rail handguards, but make sure you get the one for the 550 link system. A 551 or 552/3 will be far too short. But frankly, you've got enough real estate up here if you need to for at least a basic optic for this type of gun. And even though adapters are cool, frankly, Picatinny rail is more useful in this day and time. This is a low rail. It's welded on. And to work with it, we have a perfectly horizontal charging handle, cocking handle, instead of the upswept one. Makes sense with optics, so it doesn't bang into things or you don't knock your knuckles. Of course, this has a black finish. Still a steel upper, but you'll notice it's an alloy lower. And you'll notice the magwell is different. Best I can recall, this is the first time that we've had a batch of NATO lower 550s imported. I may be wrong, there might have been a handful of others, but yeah, let's talk about mags. Swiss mags are great for the classic look, but this gun isn't going for the classic look. Therefore, it ships with one, looks to be 10 round Magpul mag, but it will accept any standard AR mags. And practically speaking, the AR mag is every bit as reliable as a Swiss mag, just at like 1/5 the price. Plus, you do kind of get a more familiar manual of arms. Swiss mags are an AK style rock and lock. Now, they're a good AK style rock and lock, quite smooth, but that is different. And of course, AR mags are a straight insert here. This has a paddle to be an ambi release, and while it does kind of kick it out a little bit, it's not at all drop free. It will hang until you kind of knock it forward a bit. This has a release on either side of the lower and is true drop free, and the magwell is beveled on the inside for a little bit more easy insertions. And of course, it does have a bolt hold back device with manual release. None of that has changed. This lower is stamped steel. Cool. Traditional 80s. This lower is machined aluminum alloy. This alloy has been approved by the Swiss military for use, so it is mil spec. It's plenty durable, and it does save several ounces of weight. The 550 is often maligned as a very heavy gun. The truth is for what you get, a nearly 21-inch barrel, bipod, diopter sights, it's not bad. It's about 9 pounds unloaded. But this gun will clock in closer to 8.5 pounds. And that kind of makes up for your optic. And it's not just the fact that it is lighter, it's where the weight is. It's in the receiver area. And it makes handling much better, again, especially with an optic mounted on top. It lets you basically have that extra half pound in your optic instead of your gun. So it makes perfect sense. At least I hope so, but this was kind of my call. When they were designing this, they decided to do a threaded barrel version in black, and it was going to have an alloy lower regardless, and a pick rail. The people were of two minds, US or Swiss lower, and I was kind of the tie-breaking vote, and I said, well, heck, if we're already having a North American style gun, Picatinny rail, threaded barrel, all black look, might as well go in all the way and have a NATO lower. It's not as sexy as the original, but it's much more practical, as is our final major feature. Much like the mags, the stock is a classic feature. Now, in more recent years, SIG has made a side folding and 3-position adjustable version, which I really like, but many people don't want because it's a classic look. And I get it on a more classic gray and green gun. I do. But you know where we're at here. Now, as a pistol, this has a simple end plate, but it's very easy to swap out, and since this barrel is well over 16 inches, SBR need not apply. I've had at least 3 people this season ask me about filing this as an SBR. They probably wouldn't even let you because of the barrel length, and you wouldn't need to. It doesn't matter because SBR is for under 16 inches. It's a pistol for import reasons, but once here, there's a small pin and a large pin. I want to say more than that, but it's not much to do. And then you have the standard lower. Now, while a standard Swiss stock will actually go on this, these ship from the factory with this rear block adapter already. This lets you fit a standard AR-15, M16, or M4 buttstock. And these are actually not the usual ones. These are actually custom made and fitted to these guns. Now, you can use them as a folding stock, although there's really not much to latch it with unless you rig something up. Velcro might be a thing. Or, if you'd rather have a fixed stock, they provide you with a little roll pin here. If you get one of these, this roll pin is actually meant to go through this button and keep it from depressing. So this can be a fixed adapter or a folding one, depending on how you want to go with it. And you can just use whatever stock you want. You know, with this long barrel, I think even like an M16 A1 or A2 stock would look kind of interesting. But you could do Magpul, you could do SOP mod, you know, any standard thing will work just fine. So yeah, the 550 DMR or DMP kind of has the features not for American collectors so much as American shooters, because these guns are very accurate for what they are. Swiss precision, and I'm sure they will end up with some level of collectability too, because it's a very small import run. I thought it was interesting. What do you think? With that, let's move on. Look at a few more traditional 550 PE90 types in different colors.
Get that little safety there. Sweet.
If you've gone black and don't want to go back, but are still more of a traditionalist, this is a unique version, I think, that has been in before, but has always been very limited numbers. This is all black, but it's otherwise the same configuration. It actually has a modern production 20-round mag, which you don't see a lot of now. Diopter sights. Still has the stamped steel lower, even in black, with the SIG roundel. See, it has the Swiss crest on top. The scope mount even has the upswept charging handle. Again, same gun, just in all black. And I think it's kind of cool. They're actually marked Black Special. And that's how you can easily know that, along with the serial number, which is a special serial number, that these are this way in Switzerland. They're not done in the U.S. because a few years ago they had some unfinished guns come in, and so they got Cerakoted here in the USA. And no, this isn't one of them. This is 100% Swiss. Even comes with the proper Swiss bayonet lug, although you can unroll pin it and use a NATO lug if you so desire. 2-position regulator, flip up night sight. yeah, I don't know why, but I think the Black Special is kind of neato. There is one difference to note. Originally, the fixed flash hider was not internally threaded for a blank fire device. Sometime later, I don't know, 90s, early 2000s, they started threading them. This is actually where you get the 20.8-inch barrel. This is ever so slightly longer than this. You can tell by the flash hider slot. So if you want to know externally how to tell the difference, look at where the slot ends. So yeah, that does kind of also come to another point. There have been 3 barrel manufacturers for these. SIG, of course, Hammerly, and Burn. But the difference is not as much as you would think, even though some have a higher reputation for accuracy than others. The truth is, Hammerly, which is actually now owned by the same company that owns SIG, the Lurtmeyer Group or whatever, they, Hammerly and Burn, over the years, provided blank barrels, or at least not fully completed, fully finished out barrels, which SIG would do final testing on. So all 3 types were put through the same final testing at this SIG factory in Neuhausen, Switzerland. But it is kind of a cool variation to have a different barrel maker mark on your gun. But in practical terms, I don't know that one is really any better than the other, because they're all made to the same military spec. Now, it does get more interesting when it comes for which ones are approved for export or not, which is why some of the newer barrels are threaded internally and some aren't. But yeah, that's just a small change that was introduced to the design when the Swiss started using blank fire devices for training. And some people do try to use these internal threads for a sound suppressor. That will kind of work, but it's got a clamp on here. They're very short threads though, and they aren't really meant for it. But your older guns, PE90s and Prebands, and some of the newer imports are not internally threaded, and getting a sound suppressor to fit that means you have to literally clamp it on here, and that's hard to keep completely straight in my opinion, and not worth it, which is why the DMR is kind of the better way to go. But yeah, the Black Special, it's a black gun. Not much more to talk about than that. We've had these in once or twice before, and again, with the special serial and special marking, it might be of interest to collectors in the future, or it might not be. People ask me, what will become collectible? And honest to God, no one knows. Sometimes the guns you just think are a shoe-in really never do, and other guns out of left field you never thought would be collectible end up being the most desirable in the world. So, yeah, buy what you like and let the cards fall where they may, frankly.
Knock the target off. Free for all.
Next up, we have one that I kind of consider a sleeper. It hasn't really caught on yet, but it's the first time this variant has come in. And I have it with the 30-round modern mag. Most of your current military orders, especially for export, do not need the notches. They're cool in theory, but they can hang up on gear. This fits in a much more standard pouch. And the switch from 20 to 30s has happened mostly with the Special Forces Command in Switzerland, but most export customers want a 30. Here it is, yeah. And as you can hopefully see, this has a silver finish to it. SIG calls this Satin Nickel. Now, there was someone online telling folks that some of these were actual real nickel. I wasn't sure, so I asked SIG. They said no, they're all the same. It is a nickel-esque finish, but it's not actually nickel, and they're all the same. Now, if a third party from Switzerland has nickeled some 550s or PE90s, maybe. I mean, third parties can nickel anything. Look at World War II guns. But from the SIG factory, this satin nickel finish, it's the same kind of ceramic paint over phosphating, but it doesn't actually contain true nickel. It's just nickel in appearance. Thought I would point that out, because there is someone online spreading the notion that there are two silver versions. But this finish is actually taken from the PE90 Blum or Blum edition. In fact, up till now, it was exclusive to the Blum edition. But this is not a Blum. It's a regular 550, just has unique, shiny finish from the factory. I'm sure it's not everyone's cup of tea, but for some, it's different. As far as mags go, you'll get whatever. Most of these current guns have 20 rounders, but in the past you get 30 with or without notches. Typically SIG is going to pack whatever mags they have to hand. Pros and cons to each. Some people really want a 20 with the more traditional looking gun, but you would think with the kind of more modern look, a 30 would be more practical. But then again, it does hang down more, makes bipod use more difficult. You can see the SIG marking and crest on top. The Blums were neat, but they would leave the factory with this special finish and special serial, but otherwise that's all SIG would do. Then they would go to a gunsmith and get the trigger worked over and deburring and stuff. So essentially, this is the same as the Blum would leave the factory, but it just didn't have all the special features. And the Blums have been dropping features slowly but surely over the last several years. The bipod, the sights. It kind of makes me wonder if they're slowing down production of these. In fact, the future of the adaptor sight is uncertain. In Switzerland, they call this the American sight, because over there, everyone wants the Picatinny rail. Really, they only sell adapters to us, believe it or not. Of course, I'm not saying in the 80s and 90s. No, this is still standard Swiss military. But the Army has all the STGW90 90s they need. So when new guns are ordered, again, mostly by export customers, practically speaking, a Picatinny rail is better. But no, I think it's kind of cool. It's kind of got a matte feel to it. It's unique. Silver gray, satin nickel. And with that, we started kind of off looking at the most modern version, and so we'll end with the most traditional and talk about a few more FAQs. Our final variant configuration tonight is the one that the majority of people want and ask for, and is also the one that has come in by far in the largest numbers. The very traditional gray metal with stamped and welded lower, and OD green handguard, pistol grip. These, at least the ones I've opened up, have the 20 round mag in them. Classic adapter sights, Swiss bayonet lug. This has the same barrel, except it's the 20.8, because it does have the internal threading, 2-position gas regulator, folding night sight, the standard version. And these are imported as SG550P, which comes to a very common question. What's the difference between a PE90 and an SG550P? Not much. The truth is, in Switzerland, the STUNGEWEHR STGW90 was the select fire military version. The PE90 was the civilian version intended primarily for the Swiss, but also sold abroad. And the SG550 would come in select fire or semi-automatic with an SP prefix or suffix added back in the 80s to designate an export model. So 550, PE90, STGW90, same gun, just kind of export or domestic use. That's really the difference. Now, as far as pre-ban versus post-ban, that kind of name stuff, there are some differences worth talking about. And there are two types. Your pre-ban 550s, like I said, would be marked SP, and they came in -1 and -2. The current JDI imports are usually marked 550P and are 1 in 10, so -1. This is the majority I've tracked down. There are some PE90s that came in back in the 90s or sometime that are kind of unknown origin, and then in more recent times, Trident and others have brought over used commercial guns as PE90. At the same time, JDI has imported factory new PE90Ps with the P suffix standing for pistol. Either way, they all come in as pistol. The serial range for the 550s today have JDI, 550, yada yada yada. The PE90 range, actually this is an older one mine, but even the current ones use the same PE prefix and have the same serial set as the Swiss ones. So those are your differences, the marking and the serial range. And as far as brand new guns, that will be JDI, rather than imports over the last several years, the name change. Although used guns purchased privately in Switzerland have come in from a few different sources: Colorado Gun Sales, Trident Guns, so on and so forth. I think even B&T USA brought some in. But as far as factory new, like this one, you're going to get JDI sent imports. So that comes up a lot. As to which is better, I don't know. Doesn't really matter. The SG550 name is more identifiable, but then again, the PE90 has a little bit more of a Swiss connection, if that makes sense. Personally, I bought mine to use as a shooter. I can say without question, be it the used PE90s, the current new PE90Ps, or the SG550Ps, and no matter who brought them in the 21st century, I would take those over a pre-ban. Here are my reasons. For one, a pre-ban is going to be used by its necessity. Now, chances are very lightly used, but if you get a gun like this, it'll be new. That's always a benefit. So I don't see the reason to pay more for a used pre-ban than a new production. Of course, a pre-ban will have a stock on it, and a current import comes in as a pistol, but as we've already discussed, that's not an issue. But more has to do with the barrel. In the pre-ban era, they neutered the guns. Quite obvious is the bayonet lug. On a pre-ban gun, it's removed from the gas block. It's just zipped off here. So the ring is missing, and by extension, of course, the lug. And you might think, hey, the gas block comes on and off pretty easy. Get a replacement block, put it on, you get a ring back, put a lug in it. Yes, you can do that, and I've seen people do it. The other problem, though, is the muzzle. They turned down the grenade ring here. There's still a bulge on the pre-ban barrel, but you'll notice it doesn't have the slot with the spring in it. They took that down from roughly 22 millimeters down to, 19 millimeters, somewhere in that area, to take the grenade launcher off. And they shaved down the flash hider for the same reason. Remember, this is integrated to the barrel, so it's part of the barrel. They shaved it from 22 down to 19 millimeter, give or take, which means even if you replace the gas block and put a bayonet lug on it, it's going to fit very loose. And again, I don't mind the pre-bans. I owned one for a while that I found police surplus for a good price. But considering they're neutered and the current guns are not, I see no reason. Get the current gun. The quality is the same. I've met more than a few people that thought the current guns aren't made as well as the originals. But then once you put them in their hands, that quickly goes away. They're made to the same standards, for good or bad. I think because people weren't able to get their hands on many Prebands with only a few hundred in America, a mythology kind of sprung up around the 550, and it is a damn good gun. But I mean, you're going to get play between upper and lower. I mean, my gun here is a Swiss example, and it has a little wiggle after shooting. It's a military gun. And they are very accurate, but they're going to have good accuracy to about 300 meters, because that's what they're built for. They're not going to make sub-MOA hits out to 1,000 meters. That's just not what they were ever designed for. This is a military issue gun. And if you keep that in mind, you will not be disappointed. But if you expect it to be flawless and perfect, which yes, some do, you will be disappointed. And I don't just mean with the current imports. I mean even if you find yourself a Preband. While well made, and each one is quality control tested and test fired and all that, they are mass produced on a schedule, on a budget, by human workers who make human mistakes. Now, by far, the flaws tend to be cosmetic only, not functional. But still, people get this attitude that if they pay X number of dollars for a gun, it needs to be cosmetically perfect. And in a perfect world, that would be what happens. But the truth is, a $300 gun, a $3,000 gun, heck, a $30,000 gun is just as likely to get a scratch in shipping or during test firing as any of the others. And the same goes with SIGs. And of course, you always get one back here on the ejection port. That's just part of it. Some people put tape there or Velcro. You can. I think it's just kind of a badge of honor that the gun's been used, frankly, my opinion. Kind of like the safety rub mark on an AK, or how on an AR-15 sometimes the brass deflector gets discolored from casings dinging it, or an AUG. They have a spot on their stock that bounces too. It's just natural wear and tear. It's like driving your car. Things happen. And if it's in honest use, I think it's great. I don't think it matters. But yeah, we've been lucky. It seems like we had a batch of 553s, 553Rs, 553 300s. We had a batch or two of 751s. And most recently, over this summer, since July, we've had a few different styles of 550 right now. I would ask, please don't ask me if I've got a 553 SB. Please, please. People have been asking all year. Lots of people. Even if I had a few stuck back, many people have already asked. Unfortunately, there just hasn't been a batch of 553 SBs come in a while. Will there be one in the future? Hopefully. But for now, we get what we get. What'll be funny is when the 553 SBs come in, then people will want the 550s because they're sold out. We saw the same thing with the 551s. These come in batches, and they might seem like they're everywhere, but that's an illusion. They all come in very tiny numbers, typically 2 digits, sometimes even single-digit import numbers like the 552s with adapters. And when they're gone, at least for a while. So what do you think? Which is your kind of favorite cup of tea? Let's wrap this up. As I said at the beginning, haven't done a 550 type video since Mother's Day, and the shooting clips I used were just kind of recycled from that, just for fun. They are a lot of fun to shoot, though. Each of them has kind of its attributes. SIG says that the 1 in 10 twist is good up to 69 grains. The 1 in 7 they say up to at least 77 grains, so gives you an idea there. I mentioned the regulators, the gas regulators. If you do get a different one, make sure you get the one for your appropriate barrel length and twist rate for best performance. And when it comes to the SIG mags, much like the guns, they're here today, gone tomorrow. So if you do get a SIG mag example, try to get as many spares as you can, but also be patient. Same thing goes for buttstocks. The supply is never enough to meet demand. And that's just where we are, like that the 550 DMR, DMP. It was supposed to be here with these, which came in July. It came in at the beginning of September. This was a delay. I do think it's a cool configuration, though, for the shooter. Either the competition or silencer or whatever. And it's pretty much ready to go since it has the adapter for AR-15 M4 stock in it. But like I said, which one do you like best? Do you like the all black, the black silver, or do you like the DMR type look, or do you like the traditional gray and green? These are definitely come in the largest numbers over the longest period of time, but when they go out of, when they're out of stock, they're out of stock usually for months or years. And even though they are the largest numbers, the demand is by far the highest for these. So keep that in mind. Anywho, yeah, let's discuss below. As always, if you could, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to help support the channel, please check out the link to Patreon. This is Misha. We'll catch you very soon. Next time.